Welcome back, everyone, to the W Sports Podcast. Yes, Jimothy is here with the best host in the business, Tubby. Welcome back.
What is up? Man, we got a lot to talk about after. It's kind of a crazy week
It
for
was a
football.
It was a crazy week. There was one amazing storyline, and we'll get to that here pretty soon. There was some craziness in the NFL. One of the biggest things I thought stood out there was the 49ers looked like they were about to steamroll 10-point favorites at one point in the game, only to lose. We'll talk about more of that as we get into the show. And yeah, you know we're going to talk baseball too, so that will be on the bonus content side. So if you're listening to the downloaded podcast and you were hoping to hear about some baseball, don't worry, we got you. It's over on the YouTube page. So make sure you go ahead, head on over to the W Sports Podcast, our live page over on YouTube. Every single Monday we're recording. We want you to be a part of it. We want you to be a part of the chat because that is what makes the W Sports Podcast so much fun as you guys jump in the chat. So Tubby, you feeling ready to go with some college football?
I'm ready to talk some college football.
Okay. What do you want to talk about first then? I mean, we're just going to – you coming in ready.
I mean, we might as well start it off with what kind of started the whole weekend off in a kind of a crazy –
How many people forgot that Colorado was playing Friday, even after Coach Prime talked about it, because it was so late at night?
Yeah.
I don't blame
I turned it off whenever it was 21-0 because I mean, it's all how Stanford was moving the football, and they weren't moving the ball really at all. And I was like, well, this game's over. I checked back about halftime, turned on, looked at my ESPN app just to see what the score was halftime, 29-0. I'm like, okay, yeah, there's no chance that, this is going to be like a 50-something to maybe 7-10 blowout. Wake up next morning, not the case. 46-43, double overtime. Like, what on earth happened for this to happen?
Yeah, I think that is the question. What happened? Because we've seen the opposite work out well for Colorado, where they've been down, not in 29-0 hole, but a big hole, and they flip the switch. They go out, they give max effort. And again, I didn't watch the second half of this game. Forgot I was even on because it was so late. It was a Friday night. It was one of those trap games. So unfortunately, that's what got Colorado here. I don't know that it was like lack of effort. I think it's just one of those weird games. You hate the Friday game. You hate the Thursday game if you're one of these teams because it's a trap game. It gets someone every year, and unfortunately, I think it got them. And let's not forget that Colorado's defense is really, really bad. It's really bad right now.
Yeah, it's not good. I think, I don't know. I mean, Coach Prime kind of, I think, felt like he threw the players under the bus a little too much. Didn't take enough ownership in himself. He pretty much said, I need to know if these kids love football, whatever. Basically put it all on them. Didn't say, I should have coached better. I should have got them prepared to play in that second half. My big problem with it is I feel like they probably did take a lot off the gas pedal because you have Shedeur Sanders at halftime on Instagram posting about his links to his merchandise.
Yeah,
halftime of the game.
Let's get that under control. Can't have
and
that.
So, I mean, you are probably sitting there going, we're up 29-0 against a team that's averaging less than 20 points a game. Yeah. And so I'm sure they were like, we can go out there and we're still going to win this game. I don't think in any realm that they expected to lose this game. I mean, one of the biggest things that stuck out, and it stuck out, I think, a lot through a lot of their games, is the undisciplined football. You get 17 penalties for 127 yards. And you get Travis Hunter back. And
they win.
He just I've seen a couple things where I guess NFL scouts are kind of telling him he's going to have to pick one side or the other when it comes to football, because they're seeing that maybe him playing so much on the offensive side has affected him as a deep, as a cornerback, where I think a lot of people see him as being a Sauce Gardner type guy where he's going to have an instant impact first year in the NFL. And I think they said he's getting like a quarterback rating when he's thrown at is like 92.1%. And
it's really good in college. Like that's really good defense right there.
Yeah. And he got smoked this game. 11 catches, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns against him. But he is coming back from kidney injury, or liver injury. I mean, he almost lost part of his liver.
I know.
And probably came back faster than people expected.
Yeah, and on the offensive side, he 13 for 142 touchdowns. He almost, net zero on that with still 5 tackles. I will say, at the next level, he's going to have to choose one side unless he just wants to, unless he says, no, I'm going to be like Prime and I'm not going to do that, which we haven't. I mean, it's so rare to see that. It's probably just not.
Mm-hmm.
More than likely that happens. And here's the thing. If maybe you're a casual fan, here's the secret. At the next level, it's so hard to make it because everyone's incredible. Everyone's incredible at what they do, whether it's offense, defense, it's skill position, whatever it is. They're so good at what they do. And so if you want to be the elite of the elite, you have to give so much time and effort, focus, energy, dedication, education, all that side of it to that position. And so to split that up into 2 spots with 2 sets of coaches, 2 sets of film rooms, it's just so hard to excel at that unless you're Coach Prime in his prime back at, when he was playing. And even then it was mostly just on defense. Every now and then you'd see him special teams and stuff like that. It's a little bit different. I think he will eventually, but right now in Colorado, they got to, as bad as the defense is, I know he didn't have a good game. You got to throw him out there. You got to hope he plays defense.
Yeah, I don't like them saying, oh, well, you got to pick. It's college football.
Oh, yeah.
We want to see this. Why not? It's something that you're not going to see a whole lot of ever really anymore.
Yeah.
And it's not like one thing is affecting the other. Because his season total, let's see if I wrote it down. Before this game, he only gave up 70 yards. Passing.
Pretty good.
So, one game when he's coming back after a pretty rough injury where, like I said, a lot of people are probably surprised that he came back as fast as he did after having a lacerated liver.
Yeah.
You can expect some rust, but offensive-wise didn't, affect him. Mm-hmm. But defensive-wise, you could tell that, probably playing both sides right off the bat may have been a bad idea because it definitely seemed like it gassed him out more on the defensive side than the offensive side. So maybe that was part, maybe something Coach Prime should have thought about. But, I don't think anyone expected him to give up 11 catches for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns against Stanford.
Yeah, and again, this is a muscle they're going to have to get really good at winning when they're on top. And that's just part of the learning curve. And again, this is a game that last year, OU was losing, not necessarily they weren't up 29-0, but there were games that you're like, oh my gosh, they lost the one that they shouldn't have. It's part of the learning curve, part of the culture. So I don't think this is a massive step back for Colorado or anything like this. This is still a really good offensive team. Sanders is still a really good quarterback. He's one of the top 20, I think, easily in the country right now, depending on what you want to say, but easily up there as far as top quarterbacks. So they're going to be a challenge going forward, but they have all the talent to make a bowl game. And I think that would be a massive win for this team this year.
Yeah, I think that they had I don't know. I think this loss hurts their chances a lot because you look at the schedule going forward, you really got one game where you look at it and you go, that's probably a win, and it's Cal. And the rest of the games you're looking at and you're like, they're going to be tough for you to get that extra win, that 6th win to put you bowl eligible. So I think bowl eligibility may be a little more in question because I think everyone, pinned them beating Stanford. The way they've played and the way Stanford's played, I think kind of, hurts them a little bit. I feel like they have kind of gotten a little too much about the social media and the hype of what's going on instead of focusing so much on football because
it could be.
The thing with the Arizona State, you beat Arizona State last second, a team that you probably should have smoked because based off of, way you guys have played this year, and you win by, last second and you're out there taunting like you just won a national championship game. I thought was, showing that you're a little playing into a little too much. You need to focus a little more on the football. And I think that's part of it too. Shedeur Sanders putting stuff out there, in the middle of, a game. Yeah, it's halftime, but you're promoting your merch and stuff in the middle of halftime and during a game. I think, probably showed a lack of focus going into the second half, and it, ended up biting you in the butt.
Yeah, can't argue with the results.
Yeah.
Let's go. We're going to transition a little bit here. Not a whole lot to talk about the top 4, but there's one team we should at least mention briefly. Georgia wins 37-20. It's the first time Vandy has scored a touchdown on this team in a while. Any big concerns? 13 of the points from Vanderbilt came in the fourth quarter. Foot's all a little bit off the gas for Georgia. How big of a game is this? Brock Bowers, obviously, he was in this game, but not nearly the same factor that you would have expected.
So this game ended up having, I think, more impact on the college football season than people expected because Brock Bowers is now out 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain, and you're getting to the meat of the schedule where a lot of people didn't expect this part of the schedule to be as tough as it's going to be because, yeah, you get your bye week, you got Florida, that should be an easy win because Florida's just not good. But now you bring in a Mizzou team who everyone didn't expect to be as good as they are this year, with an offense as high-powered as it is. You take out Brock Bowers, Carson Beck looked mediocre in this game versus Vanderbilt. You take away the biggest weapon on offense because Dominic Lovett hasn't really showed up like everyone expected. Ra Thompson hasn't really showed up like everyone expected. Two big time wide receiver transfers haven't really showed up a whole lot. I think this is a big deal because you got Missouri, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, your next three really big games. Without Brock Bowers, it's really going to show, what
they're made of.
Carson Beck is really done. Has he made take that step forward? Because we saw what he did against Kentucky, and we thought, okay, maybe the light has finally clicked for him. And then he has this performance against Vanderbilt where you're just kind of like, it was another mediocre performance. Yeah, you get the win because your defense, it gave 20 points. You probably took a little bit off in the fourth quarter. Understandable. But, I don't know. I think this may have a lot of more factor into what everyone expected when they saw Georgia Vandy at the beginning of Saturday. And then after Saturday, you kind of look at it and you go, well, it doesn't sound like it's as bad of an injury. And then it comes out today, he has to have ankle procedure, and he's probably going to miss the rest of the regular season.
Yeah. Carson Beck, how many road games has he played this season? Just the one game. It was against Auburn, and that was a close game. What's wild is this team, Vanderbilt, they've already played half of their road games this year. They have 4 total road games. I think that's absolutely insane. They have at Tennessee, at Georgia Tech. That's going to be the true test. Late in the season, a lot of pressure. Can Carson Beck truly get the team to the next level in those games, especially after, just a grind at that point in the season? So we'll see what happens. I'm the one who said, give it some time. Georgia, it looks like there could be some chinks in the armor. This might be a sign of things to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ricky just in the chat. OMG, they're live. Well, welcome, man. We appreciate you coming to the chat, man. All right, well, let's go ahead. There's nothing really to talk about when it comes to Vandy. Vandy, hopefully they can get another win. They only have 2 so far this year. Not going to happen. The other games, Michigan absolutely destroyed Indiana. Ohio State destroys Purdue. FSU destroys Syracuse. It's just ugly at that range. A lot of bye weeks this week. 63-0 UMass. My goodness. Forgot to even show up. Before we hit the big game where college was this weekend and over on the Pacific Northwest, let's hit Alabama, Arkansas. This looked like a game that Alabama was beginning to pull away early in the second half, a little bit there, or second quarter, excuse me. And all of a sudden, there was a chance that Arkansas could have had it. They ended up punting after their last possession, and they never saw the ball again.
Yeah, this Alabama's offensive line, you have no chance. You have no chance at winning big games. I don't think if that offensive line does not improve because it is bad. I mean, Jalen Milroe was running for his life most of the night, most of the day, but Milroe didn't really show up in the second half either. I mean, Milroe went 2 for 10 in the second half of this game, and one of them was a little swing pass out to the side. I think watching this game, I have figured out how teams need to go about beating them, and it's you prevent them from making big plays on offense because Milroe is not a quarterback that can dink and dump, these short 10-yard passes.
He streaks, go big, throw the ball up.
Yeah, he's got the big arm, but if you can stop those big plays, because that's really where Alabama had any success really with him, last week, and we're like, oh, maybe he's finally finding his footing. A lot of big plays. This week he had 2 or 3 really big plays, and you're like, oh man, he's starting to find it. And then Arkansas kind of figured something out where they were not really allowing them to beat them and playing this, deep zone, and the big plays went away. and the offensive line wasn't able to hold up. He wasn't being decisive of where he wanted to throw the football,
Mm-hmm.
and it really shut down his ability. And I think teams going forward, they're going to look at this and go, okay, if we can stop any big plays really, or hold them to maybe one, or they're going to struggle offensive wise. And it really showed that this is the way to beat Alabama. It's just that offensive line is so bad, which is absolutely crazy that the last 3 years that Alabama's offensive lines have just been, some of the worst in Power 5 football, when they have been year in, year out since Saban's been there, one of the most powerful units in college football.
Really have. And it makes you think back to last year and the year before that with Bryce Young and those Heisman moments he had. Oftentimes it was when the pocket was collapsing or he extended the play because of pressure, things like that. And it's like, hey, now we're just seeing Jalen Milroe, he's not Bryce Young. And that's okay. And so defenses, I think the more tape that's on Milroe, the more likely you're going to see this strategy. And that's typically what happens later in the year. I mean, we'll get more into this too, other coaches who just aren't able to adjust or don't have the talent to adjust. And this may be a talent issue at Alabama, which is absolutely wild to say.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So Alabama coming up, they got Tennessee. That's actually this week. So that's when's against Tennessee. They do get that at home, and they get a bye before hitting LSU. So things are not going to get any tougher for them. If they can get 2-0 on that, that'd be huge. But 1-1 looks likely before they can probably finish the year out with 3 straight wins: Kentucky, Chattanooga, of course, and Auburn. So we'll see. Other big game from this weekend was over on the West Coast. You had college game day was out there. I couldn't remember what I was going to call it there for a second. Oregon versus Washington. I really thought Washington lost this in the last bit, but they ended up scoring the touchdown. 2-point conversion, but scoring the touchdown and going up by 3, and they pull it out at home 36-33 with Michael Penix going over 300 yards. Bo Nix didn't have a bad day either, but this was just a tale of 2 really, really, really good teams.
Yeah, I think probably Dan Lanning probably needs to own a lot of what happened in this game, because he made a couple really questionable calls. You had twice where you're in the red zone, chip shot field goals. When you're in a game like this, you don't want to take field goals, but you want points at some point. And then going for it at midfield, fourth quarter, fourth and few, whatever, and you go for it at midfield and give Washington all the perfect field position basically, and they march down the field, score, and then the final drive, you could tell that they were just playing for a field goal. Yeah. And I get you just needed a field goal to tie it up, but come on, try to go out and win the game. You've got Bo Nix, who is a great quarterback. You've got some good wide receivers on the outside, and you just didn't really play to win that game. You played for the field goal, and he played scared. I feel like in that second half, and he probably played overly confident in the first half where he gave up, left 6 points on the board. So he wasn't able to find that perfect medium, in big time situations. And Michael Penix, he set himself up perfect for the Heisman race right now.
Oh, he is on his way. Oregon, that's the thing too, though. On the road, especially in a game like that, you got to go for the win. You can't play for the tie. There's just too much that can happen in a home crowd. Things don't get any easier for Oregon as they got Washington State, Utah. Get a breather with Cal, but USC and still Oregon State. So this is going to be a long season for Oregon. They have the ability to bounce back and control their destiny overall if they can win out, because they just got to – I mean, if they beat USC there and Oregon State, they'll be in a good position there. So crazy to think that Bo Nix and Michael Penix had a chance to really make the name for who has the chance to take the lead. I think the winner of this would have taken the lead in the Heisman race, and that was for sure after Caleb Williams' performance. 3 picks in the first half. That defense looked rough against Notre Dame. Notre Dame had a really good bounce-back game and really just controlled the game from start to finish, it felt like. And boy, did it feel good as an OU fan.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, talking game-wise real quick, that was the most human, I think, on the football field I've ever seen Caleb Williams play. They completely neutralized him, partly due to the fact that offensive line could not stop a nosebleed if they tried. He was running crazy. They ended up sacking him 5 times. It probably could have been closer to 10 if it wasn't for Caleb Williams being able to escape and elude. But he just made mistakes that he typically doesn't make. And you could tell they were just not in this, cohesion that the offense has been in. And it's kind of been the last couple of weeks where the offense, against Arizona, the offense really wasn't in a good, cohesion throughout that game, especially in the first half. And it was the same thing with this game where it was in the first half. Luckily, last week you played Arizona. Well, this week you played a real defense and you played a tough team in Notre Dame, and you weren't able to find that, momentum. Really held them to 1 touchdown under 200 yards. But yeah, I think you have to give your hats off to that Notre Dame defense, because really the offense, it didn't have to do a whole lot. That defense was putting them in position all game with the turnovers and the pick 6, the fumble return for a touchdown, put him in position pretty much the whole game. And the best thing for the Oklahoma fans, when this happened, the press conference afterwards, Lincoln Riley gave the most typical Lincoln Riley thing that we heard as Oklahoma fans, many times. And it was like, everyone wants to, think that we're so far away after this game, but we're close.
We're close. Dude?
And I'm like, I don't know how close you really are. I mean, because that defense is bad. And you can tell, though, Caleb Williams throughout that press conference was agitated the whole time. Like, you can tell he was kind of looking at Lincoln Riley like, dude, really? Did you not watch the same game that I just watched?
And I thought, so last year they did play each other. USC won that game 38-27. Later in the season, Caleb Williams was good, very effective. What did he have? He had 3 rushing touchdowns in the game last year, which I think is crazy. This year, completely neutralized. So this was the second year, new coaching of the coaching staff, seeing Caleb Williams, knowing the game plan for him. And it didn't feel like they did the classic drop 8, but because there was constantly pressure. But this was a very physical Notre Dame team that created turnovers, took a lot of momentum, especially being at home, and it just snowballed. So thank goodness USC lost. I mean, what's wild is they're still undefeated in their conference, and so they still can obviously play for the Pac-12 championship, but they have a tough road going down here with Cal, Utah, Washington, Oregon, and UCLA. Ricky in the chat said they're going to get 4 losses to end out the year.
I mean, that was pretty much what you were saying at the beginning of the season was, that first half of that schedule, it should be a cakewalk, which it really wasn't. They had some really tight games against some bad teams. And then we're like, that back half of that schedule is when it really gets tight and tough. And they've already shown some chinks in the armor before this Notre Dame game. Now they're showing more. My question is, after you've seen them play against Notre Dame the way they did this week, is this what we can come to expect? I think for the most part, not every single week, not every single game, but once they move to the Big Ten, because this is probably the closest to a Big Ten team they will ever see, in a non-conference or even conference schedule. So is this what we can expect to see? Because, I mean, they play that tough, brooding defense, the physical offense that Lincoln Riley's teams don't typically play well against.
Yeah, time is going to tell, but man, what a difference a year makes. 1 year ago today, what was it like to be a USC fan? It was amazing, this whole thing. And then we have OU getting smacked in the mouth 49-0 because they didn't have a quarterback in the Red River rivalry game. I'd already just blown a lead against TCU, and the wheels were coming off. Here we are a year later. Lincoln Riley's doing the same stuff, and they just happen to lose earlier this year. And who knows? Maybe they run the table. Maybe Lincoln Riley rights the ship. But what we've seen is what we've seen. And I don't know. It looks like 1 year is all the difference so far. So it feels really good to be an OU fan, at least this week. OU.
I don't know if you got a chance to see that video I sent you. Okay, so it's these USC podcaster, people, analysts and stuff like that talking about, and he's like, I have a feeling, and he's like, I have no anyone telling me this is what's going on, anything that's going on. He said, but man, I just have a feeling, he said, the way they're playing, the way they're disconnected, USC, that at the end of the season, something's going to come out and it's going to be like, maybe some controversy, something like that, or, some of these players calling out the coaches about stuff that's going on. He said, but when it happens, we're going to go, that's why. And I'm like,
familiar.
this is exactly what happened to Oklahoma 2 years ago, when it was just like, we look at that team and we're like, there's no way we should be playing as bad as we are. And then it comes out, he's basically kind of been checked out the whole season. Had his agent talking to other teams about possibly leaving, going, and I'm like, this seems like the same thing. And I saw another article from the LA Times Friday before the game, and it was like, Lincoln Riley has talked about the loss of Mike Leach and David Nix, two of his mentors, and that maybe he's talked about early retirement from college football, and that he's looked at the NFL schedule, and the NFL schedule is a lot better than the college football schedule. It's a little more wide open and stuff like that. And I was like, now that comes out, this guy says this, maybe something's happening. Yeah, that Lincoln Riley may be jumping to the NFL. Like, we have no sources. We have no reason to think this, but it's just kind of crazy that story comes out Friday before the game, and this guy says this, a couple days later. Maybe there's something more to it than what's going on in USC.
Oh, time is going to tell. I love it because Ricky in the chat just said he's going to leave for the NFL after the season. You just put it out there. Going to go ahead and say it. Maybe he heads to the Bears. Wouldn't that be hilarious?
Oh man.
Oh man. That'd be great. All right, let's move on to some of the other games. Miami continues to find ways to lose. Had a terrible third quarter, lose 21-0. And then Louisville proves that they are not for real as they lose to a 1-4 Pittsburgh. This is a bad Pitt team this year. They get stomped on the road. Bigger disappointment this week. Obviously, North Carolina is ranked number 12. And so losing on the road to them for Miami. But Miami they were winning at halftime, and then they just came out flat.
Oh, it's absolutely Louisville. After the week before, when you just stomp Notre Dame, you go and play Pitt and you absolutely just get manhandled.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand what happened in a week span. I don't know if you just got overly confident and you're like, well, we're playing Pitt, they're 1-4, we don't have to try so hard. But man, they definitely were one of the bigger disappointments, because I thought after what they did to Notre Dame, I was like, maybe this team's a little more for real than I thought, because I thought Notre Dame was going to win that game. I didn't think Louisville had a whole lot of chance, because they really hadn't played a whole lot leading up to that game, and you just absolutely just lay an egg. I think, though, looking at that Miami UNC game, I think Drake May needs to get a little bit more Heisman love than he has got so far.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, over 2,000 total yards, 16 total touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 83.6 QBR, places him 8th in college football right now, and he's completing almost 70% of his passes. The fact that he's not getting what I think he deserves right now. I mean, you got an undefeated UNC team that looks like they could be a very big contender to Florida State in this conference, because of I can't remember. You got back a wide receiver. He was ineligible the first 5 weeks because NCAA idiots. Yeah, Daz something. I can't remember his last name, but he came out and just absolutely balls out in his first game with UNC. I think he had like 130 some yards, 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Devontae Walker.
Yeah, Tez Walker. That's it.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm seeing his whole name. I don't think I've seen his whole name like that. Yeah, I gotta squint.
Yeah, so I mean, that could be a game changer, because he really didn't have that big offensive weapon that we were like, he's had. You had Josh Downs last year, and then you're like, man, he doesn't really have that go-to guy. Well, Tez Walker is a big-time wide receiver. Next level. Yeah, now you give him a go-to target, and against a Florida State team, I think that is kind of played a little bleh. Yeah, they beat Syracuse pretty decently, but it was a close game at halftime. And you've played bad against some bad teams, and you finished up good, but I haven't really seen them play a complete game of football since week 1.
Yeah. We're going to go through some of the other scores real quick before we head over to the NFL. So Oregon State, UCLA, big matchup this week. Oregon State did handle that one. Utah over Cal, another Pac-12 matchup. Until they get Cam Rising back, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. This team is a false number 16 in the country. Their quarterback play is just not good enough. And then Tennessee over Texas A&M, like, ugly game, 20-13. This Tennessee team has been pretty disappointing.
The whole outlook of their offense is completely different than what we saw last year, where now this year it's more about grinding out wins with the run game than it is relying on your quarterback like they did with Hendon Hooker. Joe Milton really hasn't been what I think a lot of people expected this year. Kid's got an arm like no other, probably, put him up there pound for pound, one of the strongest arms in football, period. But the accuracy has let him down a lot this year. But they've been able to rely on that offensive line and that run game, and they've got a really stout, defensive line. So, they've been a little underwhelming to say the least, because you absolutely got pounded by Florida, and we've seen how bad Florida is this year. It kind of makes you wonder what happened. Was it just the big rivalry game and Florida showed up because that was their Super Bowl for the season, or you just had a bad game? Or is there more cracks there than we expected throughout the year? I don't know. I guess we'll see once they play, Alabama this week.
They're 5-1 this year. So, we're disappointed. Mm-hmm. They're still 5-1. They obviously, like you said, lost that one. So, looking at some of the other games here, we had Arizona. I think they found their quarterback. He's only in there because of an injury, but Noah Fafita?
Yeah.
Fafita? I thought it was an L, it's an F. Yeah, dude has absolutely been electric on offense for them.
Yeah, came out of nowhere. Jaden Delora gets hurt, and Jaden Delora is a pretty solid quarterback, and he gets hurt, goes down, and first game you get to play against USC, and you play pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Or no, he played against Washington, actually. I think he was the quarterback against Washington, and played good against Washington. They only lost by 8 to Washington, and then you play USC. You had your team in the position to win, wasn't able to, and this week you just absolutely smack Wazoo, which I was absolutely shocked.
I know, yeah. Cameron Ward had just kind of it was just an off day. They had no momentum, couldn't get any consistency, and then it just steamrolled.
Mm-hmm.
This is overall not a great week for the Pac-12.
No, definitely not a good week for them.
Yeah, but how realistic is Arizona to be not necessarily a threat for this, but if they found a quarterback, is this a program on the rise right now, or is this, hey, this is nice, it's a hot streak, don't get your hopes up?
I think it's probably more towards the latter. Jed Fish is a good head coach, and he's done good. I think a lot better than I expected throughout the first couple of years being there. But I don't know. I don't know if they're able, because they were able to get 2 big time recruits, and both of them decommitted after the USC loss.
Yeah.
And so I think it's kind of, I don't know if they will be able to get enough big enough recruits to be able to propel that team. Maybe they become a decent team. Hey, going into the Big 12, we'll see what they can do.
That might help, overall.
Yeah.
It's a winnable conference, I think, going over there. I will say this, everybody listening, did anybody else know the head coach for Arizona? Because the only man I know that would is Mr. Tubby himself over here. You just can't question this guy's knowledge. He knew it. Didn't he have to look at his notes? Just boom. I know, and I already know commits. I'm just saying, guys, you got to keep listening to the W Sports Podcast. You're not going to get any better of this play-by-play, anything like this commentary than the one and only Tubby. So, man, just hats off to you, man. That was incredible.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. One quick game. We had 2 games I want to hit before we hit this upcoming weekend. We had Oklahoma State somehow beat Kansas. As soon as Daniels was out, I was like, all right, it's got Bean again, who threw for over 400 yards. But I think most of that was just from behind. And this game was ugly. And then the Missouri stomping on Kentucky. What is the deal with some of these teams? We think they're for real, and then it's no.
Yeah, no. Kentucky, I think, showed us what they were against Georgia, and then it just, you had the big game where they beat sorry, I lost train of thought. They go out and destroy Florida.
Yeah.
Ray Davis runs for 200 some yards, just absolutely destroys them. We're like, okay, even with Devin Leary playing bad, that run game is good. And we thought Georgia's run defense wasn't so good. Georgia just absolutely lays the smackdown on them. And then the Mizzou game, you're like, maybe they can, do something because Mizzou's run defense isn't, super great. No, Mizzou just comes out there, puts it on them. So we know who Kentucky is. They're maybe a bottom top 25 team just because they probably could be a good handful of teams in college football because Mark Stoops does typically play decent defense. This year, I don't think the defense is quite on par, but Ray Davis is a different level when it comes to running back. I don't think he gets enough hype for what he's done so far being there. But yeah, I don't know. I think we know who Kentucky is, and I think this Mizzou team could really give Georgia a scare in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing is Devin Leary is really just not what his peak was. Ever since the injury, it just hasn't been the same. He's had 4 straight games, I believe, with sub 60% completion percentage. That's just not going to get it done at the Power 5 level. So, hey, big news at the KU game. I didn't realize OU played KU in KU this year. It's 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Guess who's going to the game?
Hell yeah.
And it's an 11 a.m. game, which I'm excited about because I didn't want a late game, but I can't decide if I want Daniels to play or if I want Bean to play. Like, I just want to win. I just want to just win.
So I've seen a few things about Daniels that I may be a little interesting to see what happens. Whether or not they're true, I hope they're not because I don't want to think of him as that type of player. But there's talk that he's possibly there's talks that Daniels is possibly sitting out right now to get healthy, not for the OU game, but to transfer after this year.
Yeah.
And I hope he's not that kind of guy, but I get it. You're trying to look out what's best for your future. Cool. But man,
I hear that, but man, Kansas is in a position right now to be the third best team in the Big 12, if not the second best, to get one big win, So
yeah.
And they're on the up trajectory where a lot of these teams, TCU, K-State, they're just on the down or the plateau. And man, I just see stay, man.
Yeah,
you don't have to come from a big school to be a good quarterback at the next level.
No, and you go out there and you play good and you get your team in position to win and you win more games, it's going to attract more bigger players, especially if Lance Leipold is wanting to stay there like that, the reports have been said, because I love what Lance Leipold has done with Kansas, and he everywhere he goes, he's able to build the program into a better program than they were before he left. So I mean, given the chance, next year, if you stay there, you have a very realistic chance to run that conference next year. If Jalen Daniels is your starting quarterback and Lance Leipold is still the head coach there, because I don't see the Big 12 really getting a whole lot better, even with these new teams coming in. Yeah, I think Colorado, they'll have some questions if Shedeur Sanders leaves at quarterback, who's going to be the quarterback. And then I don't really see a whole lot of other competition between the teams that are in the Big 12 right now.
100%. And I hope he stays.
Yeah.
Just for the sake. And I think the Big 12 should hope he stays.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he goes somewhere else, like, I don't know, Oregon State or something like that, or, some other ACC school, it's going to be bad news because he is one of the better quarterbacks in this conference right now and potentially one of the better ones in college football. Well, let's go ahead and we're going to look forward to this weekend. So I believe College Game Day is going to be Ohio State, Penn State. I think that's right. It just makes sense. Number 3 versus number 7. I don't even have to ask you who you got in this game.
Dude, I've actually had some.
Ooh.
I've looked at this game and I have a lot of things I like about Penn State because
this has changed.
I like Drew Aller. I really thought Drew Aller going into the season, I like the potential, and he's, I think, a little bit ahead of schedule than I thought he would be this year.
That's fair.
And Chop Robinson, edge rusher, defensive end from Penn State, has been just an absolute problem throughout this season. Kalen King is one of the best corners in college football. You don't see him show up on the stat line a whole lot because no one wants to throw towards him because he is that good, And I feel like Ohio State, yeah, you beat Notre Dame. I just feel like they haven't really shown a whole lot. I think their defense is better than it was last year, but I'm not big on McCord. But there's a few things that are holding me back, and it's James Franklin's record at Penn State against top teams. He's 2-11 on the road against top 25 teams. 0-9 on the road versus top 10 teams. 1-8 versus Ohio State, and he's 1-11 versus top 5 teams.
Yeah, it's stacking up pretty high. It's like the assistants versus Nick Saban. It's not looking good.
Yeah, but that being said, I'm taking Penn State.
Oh, there we go. That would not have happened earlier this year. I'm telling you, like, look at Penn State on the road. Wow, I like it.
It's the defense I think is going to be the deciding factor. I think Chop Robinson is going to be the X factor in this game. Him being able to get to Kyle McCord, if he's been able to what he's been able to do throughout this season, if he's able to get to the quarterback with a very questionable Ohio State offensive line this year, and if Kalen King is following Marvin Harrison, yes, Ohio State has many weapons on the outside. Emeka Egbuka is banged up, though. So whether or not he'll play in this game against Penn State, I think there's still some questions out there. But I think Chop Robinson, him being able to put pressure on Kyle McCord is going to be the X factor. And they win this one, they squeak it out, and we see Michigan, Penn State both undefeated once they play each other.
Well, that would be incredible because then you still have Ohio State, Michigan, which at the end of the year, all the things this can play. This is a massive, massive game. I do like Penn State as well. Man, you stole my line, man. I was going to say the defense is what's going to make Ohio State be one-dimensional, and they're not as good when they're one-dimensional. You talked about the offensive line. We talked about the run game struggles so far in the previous weeks. You just go listen to previous podcast episodes. That has been the biggest struggle. So I think even though they're at home, this defense for Penn State has done such a good job overall. I mean, it's just been tough. And obviously they haven't played. I mean, they played Iowa in mass.
Yeah.
Those aren't great teams. So some of the numbers inflated, but I do think the talent is there. So it's going to be it's a great way to start your college Sunday right there. Penn State, Ohio State, two massive fan bases. I can't wait for that one. So I'm just surprised. Look at how they've just warmed up to you. Look at this.
Yeah. I mean, I still don't like James Franklin as a head coach. I still don't think he's that good, but I like what the players have done on the field. And like I said, the defense, those two guys are NFL stars, I think, at some point in the next couple of years. And like I said, I think Drew Aller is further along than I thought he would be at this point. And he's looked really good, and they've got a good run game. I don't know. You asked me at the beginning of the year, I say they have no shot at this game. But now I've seen a different Penn State team than I expected this year.
We got Alabama, Tennessee. This is in Alabama. Who you got?
Man, this one I kind of think this is a push type game. I think either team can win, and I'm gonna go with Tennessee because I don't trust Jalen Milroe in that offensive line, and Tennessee has one of the better defensive lines in college football this year, and I think that they're going to put a lot of pressure on Jalen Milroe. And I don't think they'll be able to get the run game going. Yeah, Jace McClellan has played pretty good the last few weeks. Besides the A&M game, he kind of struggled, but A&M has a really good defensive line. And I think with better coaching, A&M probably wins that game. And that's where I think they have the edge there over what A&M was able to do. I think they have pretty on par with the defensive line that they, with the A&M. But I think Josh Heupel is a much better head coach. And so I'm going to go with them. I still think if Alabama wins this game, I would not be shocked just because I'm not completely sold on Tennessee either this year.
I'm not completely sold on them. I do think that's the biggest thing. Two of their big games that Tennessee had was sacks. They had 2 sacks against Carolina, I believe, or is that 8? They had 6 sacks, against South Carolina, and then they had 2 this last week. So I think, and that's the biggest thing. If you can get Jalen Milroe one-dimensional and in long passing situations and you can lock him down, then you can definitely have it. So I think Alabama as almost a 10-point favorite is a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Tennessee at least to cover. I'm not going to say they're going to win. I think they're going to keep it one possession. How about that? I do that? You said push. I'm going to do that number.
Hey, no, I'll take it.
Duke, Florida State. Who you got?
It depends if Riley Leonard's playing or not. And I don't know I haven't really seen anything.
Yeah, if he's not playing, they don't win.
Yeah, if Riley Leonard doesn't play, I don't think they really have much of a shot. But, they've won the last 2 games without Riley Leonard against, okay teams. But this is Florida State. They've got a high-powered offense. I mean, Keon Coleman. Did you see that catch against Syracuse from Keon Coleman? I mean, insane. The hands.
Unfair.
Yeah. In Florida State, though, they may be down Johnny Wilson again. So that, but still, I think Travis Hunter, Keon Coleman duo could be some big problems for that defense from Duke without Riley Leonard there. I'm going to take Florida State. If Riley Leonard's there, they have a shot, but I don't know. I think even if Riley Leonard's there, it's going to be tough because of the rust that's on the kid.
That's the same thing. I'm going to pick Florida State. I think it's going to be a good game overall. If Riley plays best now, I think Florida State should handle this one, especially later on in the game. So, yeah. Any other big thoughts heading into the college football weekend before we transition to NFL?
So I've got one big thing that, and the stat is pretty wild, and this is why I think that Michigan is the best team in college football. They have outscored opponents 107-0 in the third quarter.
That's pretty good. Have you seen the quarterbacks they've played, dude? They are terrible.
Yeah. I mean, they have not played anyone really to mention, but it just shows the fact that this team, even after halftime, when they have huge leads, that they still come out and are ready to play.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks a lot to what Jim Harbaugh has kind of turned around, over the last few years compared to before when we're like, man, this guy's being paid as one of the highest head coaches in football, can't win big games. Well, now we're not saying that now. Now we're looking at this team and we're like, I mean, at least us two, we're like, this is the best team in college football right now.
The fact that Georgia's still ranked above them and is far ahead of them as they are points-wise, it doesn't make sense to me. But Michigan, Michigan doesn't get these 5 4-star guys constantly, right? This is clearly a Harbaugh and a coaching staff culture that they've created. And we talked about that all this year of how important that is, whether good or bad. And Ohio State, they do get the big name guys. They're going to get those guys. And so they are at a slight advantage. And this is the long play, and that's probably why now we're seeing the results after all these years. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the NFL. Chiefs, who had 19-8 on their bingo card for a football game. That was disgusting. Give credit to the Chiefs defense. Looks really good. This offense has no receivers that can create any separation. So that's where we're at.
Yeah. So I thought about this during the game, and I think they need to go out and get Marquise Brown.
Yep.
Go out and get Hollywood Brown. He's going to be on the trade block. At this point, the Cardinals, they're not trying to win at this, so I'm sure that they would be willing to give him up for, a few picks here and, but you got to find something. You can't just go throughout the season expecting the offense to eventually click with the receivers that you have. I mean, Kadarius Toney, I think we know what Kadarius Toney is. Sky Moore, I think we kind of already know what Sky Moore is. I don't think he's like what everyone expected. MVS, a good third receiver in the NFL, maybe number 2, depending on who the other wide receiver is. And you got Travis Kelce, who is dinged up right now and still playing really good. Yep. But there's no one else on that offense that you look at. I mean, Rashee Rice, I think, has the potential, but do I think that he has the ability to be a number 1 wide receiver? I don't think so. I think he has potential to be a really good number 2 wide receiver, but I think they need more experience, and expecting a young wide receiver like Rashee Rice to, come out and be that go-to guy, I think is asking a little too much. Yeah, go out and get Hollywood Brown. I mean, why not? Yeah,
I love it. I think that'd be a great pick. And here's the thing. The Chiefs, their defense looks much better. Their offense has not been great. Look at the other teams that are dominating right now. You have the 49ers, who everybody loved this week, absolutely lay an egg, lose, which was wild. I mean, it wasn't like a field goal or something like that. They lost. They didn't get a field goal. So it lost to the Browns, who didn't start DTR, who didn't start Deshaun Watson, who that's a joke. They started PJ Walker. They win that game, doesn't throw a touchdown. And then you have the Eagles as well. They lose this week to the Jets. I don't know. So clearly there are these teams in the NFL right now that everyone seems to have a weak link. And so it's a matter of, like you said, you got to find out, how do we fix this? And I think the Chiefs we've identified is the receiving corps. But for these other two teams, who are you more worried about? The big loss on injuries for both Deebo and Christian McCaffrey for the 49ers, or the Eagles, who is this just, bad luck? Good Jets defense.
So we talked about the Eagles last week, that I haven't seen the same type of Jalen Hurts as we saw last year, especially often, just total offensive-wise.
Interceptions.
And now you lose Lane Johnson. You lose the best right tackle in football. That definitely hurts things, but I think Jalen Hurts is definitely missing Shane Steichens right now. I think Steichen losing that offense coordinator was a bigger deal than I think we expected with the head coach being there and him being such a great offensive mind. I think that there has to be a little bit more worry, I think, though, for the 49ers. If CMC and Deebo are both out for an extended period of time, we saw what Brock Purdy was able to do without them, and it wasn't a whole lot.
It looked bad. It made PJ Walker look pretty good.
Yeah, this was the first time that you saw a game where Brock Purdy actually didn't look good. And this is what I think we have been trying to say. I mean, everyone wants to throw him in there. I've seen people say, oh, he's an elite quarterback. He's so good. I think he is a good quarterback. But I think he is a great quarterback for this system. But you take out CMC, you take out Deebo Samuels, and Ayuk hasn't played the same since his shoulder injury, week 2. Kittle really hasn't done a whole lot besides one game. I feel like there's a little bit more there that, and I think the Browns kind of exposed him a little bit. They played 70 in drop back snaps for Brock Purdy. They played man coverage 71% of the time.
That's a high percentage.
And he went 6 for 19 for 51 yards.
And I mean, that's just, and it's not that you did have some injuries, but it's not that your team didn't get open. Like, you had the guys to get open. And here's my question is, how much different is Brock Purdy than Jared Goff when he was in the, like, that's what I don't get, and
yeah,
I don't know. I think that's the fear. So, and this is why a salary cap, I think, is fun, because you can't have Patrick Mahomes with the 49ers skill positions. You can't make the money work. And so the NFL is a business, and that's part of what's nice is the worst of first, or the maybe almost parity, is that you have this, right? Really good teams, good skill positions, but we have Brock Purdy, who we know is good, but he's not great. He's not elite.
Yeah.
And on the reverse side, so I would be worried. I like seeing the Browns win if Deshaun isn't playing.
I know.
I think that's a lot of fun for me.
But yeah, I mean, the 49ers, though, I mean, you missed 2 field goals.
Yeah.
But this is where it comes back to, is that you laugh about what happened in the draft because they spent a 3rd-round pick on this kid. And yeah, he's been great before this. I think he was 9 for 9 before the game. But does this now start compounding into something more going forward? Because kicker is a very delicate position, where mental really comes into it, and your mentality gets shaken a little bit. It can really snowball into something big. And he said he's got a lot more pressure on him than most kickers, going into the season, because they spent considerable draft capital on this kid.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and remember what that happened to the Bucks kicker? Or was it the Falcons kicker? I can't remember.
No, it was Roberto Aguayo.
Yeah, never could turn the corner after that all snowball of it. So, how legit? I mean, we talk about some teams that are showing some, chinks in the armor or whatever. How legit are the Lions? I mean, are we taking them seriously? 5-1, 3-0 on the road, which this team, since I've been alive, has not been able to win the road games. I think they own the all-time consecutive road loss streak, and here we are. They're winning games on the road, and they're doing it in a really solid, dominant fashion.
I'm going to go out and say I think right now the Lions are the best team in football.
What, dude? That's the show title right there. The Lions are the best team in football. Oh my God. I cannot believe I'm saying that.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people are taking them as serious as they are.
No, they're not.
Because I had worries about what the defense could do, especially in the secondary.
Yeah. But
they have found some guys. Cam Sutton has played way better than I expected this year.
Yeah.
And Jacobs, that kid has played way better than I expected. And that pass rush with, sorry, I'm having a lot of brain farts tonight.
You're good. You just said the Lions are the best team in football.
Yeah.
You're probably going to have a couple brain farts.
Say Hutch, there you go, Aiden Hutchinson. Yeah, that defensive line is really good. The linebacker crew, Jack Campbell has played really good. Anzalone has played really good. This defense has played really good, and it's a lot better than I expected, because last year we're looking at this defense, and they were one of the worst defenses in NFL. Jared Goff is doing what Jared Goff did at the second half of last year, but better.
Yeah.
The one thing is now David Montgomery is hurt. Is it an extended period? Gibbs is hurt. That is the one question I have right now. What do they have? But I think, did you see the play where they throw the pass to Amon-Ra and he ends up scoring? I think that play sums up what Dan Campbell has brought to this team, because you have the running back who's in the backfield when this play happens, runs and sprints downfield and throws the block like 15 yards downfield that set up Amon-Ra to score on that play.
Mm-hmm.
Shows how willing and much these guys care about this game of football.
Yeah.
And it showed, and they have one of the best offensive lines in NFL.
Mm-hmm.
It is really crazy to say, but I think we have seen chinks in the armor from the Bills. I mean, look what the Bills did. We thought after, they beat the Dolphins, we're like, okay, maybe that week one was just a fluke. They just played really bad again 2 weeks in a row.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Dolphins have a lot of questions on the defensive side. They have probably the most explosive.
The Peyton Manning Colts. That's what they are.
Yeah. Yeah, really explosive offense.
Mm-hmm.
You have some questions on the defensive side. Chiefs, you have questions on the offensive side. Your defense is playing really good. I think right now we're looking at maybe the most complete team in football, especially if CMC and Deebo Samuels aren't out for an extended period of time. The Eagles aren't as good as they were. Just saying. I mean, they look like the most complete team in football right now.
I remember growing up watching the Lions a little bit, and 4-2 was one year. I think it was like 2008 or something like that, and they ended up missing the playoffs. 5-1. This feels different, but let's get them to the number one seed in the NFC. 2 games against the Bears, 2 games against the Vikings. They have the Broncos. They have the Saints. 1 more against the Packers. The Ravens is next week, so that one. It's at Ravens, so that's a tough one. And then the Cowboys. You telling me this team can't get to 13 wins?
Yeah, easy
wins?
13 wins.
Dude,
yeah.
This schedule, the way it lines up, reminds me a lot of what the Eagles looked like last year, and how they didn't always play good quarterbacks. And honestly, the Eagles deserved to be in the Super Bowl last year. They were clearly the best team in the NFC. They deserved to rep it, even if I dogged them of what quarterbacks they had played, right?
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, those Lions, this is wild. I can't believe that's the title of the episode. Lions are the best team in the NFL.
I mean, I didn't expect those words to come out of my mouth at any time ever in my lifetime.
Incredible.
But yeah, I mean, when I've looked at everything and I've watched them play, I've watched them play every single week this year, and it's just, besides the Seahawks game, and they were right in that Seahawks game up until it, they have just been the best team on the field every single week that they've played.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's go ahead real quick. You mentioned the Bills. I don't think they're giving the ball to Cook enough, James Cook. That's the biggest problem. Yeah. The Giants had no business being in this game with Tyrod Taylor, and Saquon Barkley was back, which was nice, but some bad ref calls and stuff like that in this game. This is a weird game. 14-9, gross.
I mean, the Giants, literally, the end of the first half pretty much determined their chances. I mean, they had the ball right there, and the reason why Tyrod Taylor audible to a run play when he had no timeouts left with 11 seconds on the clock, I will never know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. It just – they should have beat the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
Is the craziest part. They should have won that game. And it's sad to say that offense looked like it had more cohesion with Tyrod Taylor in it than it did Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones is not that good.
I mean, we're talking about Tyrod Taylor, who's a career backup.
That's true too. Okay, fair enough. What are the Colts doing with Jonathan Taylor getting 8 carries? 8 carries in this game. I get last week. This doesn't make any sense. Zach Moss getting 7. I don't get it.
They're trying to ease him back in. I mean,
stop. The dude wasn't injured. He was just sitting.
He was injured. But he didn't.
Injured. Come on.
I mean, but you got to look at it though. That you just paid this guy $14 million a year. You really just gonna
make him score?
He hasn't played football except for 1 week. He's practiced 2 weeks. He didn't practice at all this offseason. Didn't practice at all during training camp. So I wouldn't want to just throw him out there right off the bat, first couple of weeks and go, all right, here you go. Here's 20 carries.
Yeah, okay, I get that. But Zach Moss getting more touches than this guy or more carries. No, we're gonna be
I can
different. This doesn't make
I
any
can
sense.
understand it like the first couple weeks, but if we're talking like 5 weeks into him being back and they're getting about the same amount of touches, kind of like the Derrick Henry Tajay Spears thing, then there'll be some questions on why you paid him so much. But I understand the first couple weeks trying to not just throw him back out there
Well,
after
good
not
for
really
them.
having any
They're lost by
offseason.
17 to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
And at this point, do you really want to win? I mean, your quarterback's out for the season more than likely, it sounds like, with Richardson
They need to
out.
move on. He's never not been hurt. They need to
Anthony
move on already. We already said, like, you got to find a new quarterback. See what
Yeah.
else you already have 3 wins, so it's too late to get Caleb Williams. Sorry.
Maybe. Yeah, probably is. Yeah. I mean, because I don't expect Carolina to win a whole lot this year. So, yeah, they'll definitely have the number 1 pick.
Still. Man, they look
Yeah.
rough. Is Bryce Young, is that turning? I mean, it's too early to say anything, right?
Yeah, no, it's way too early. I think for him,
Just want to make
it's
sure.
just I mean, really, you got to look at skill position wise. What does he have besides Adam Thielen, who's having a rejuvenated year? You don't really have a whole lot to support that kid in the pass game, really in the run game. I don't think Miles Sanders is anything special. Chuba Hubbard, anything. The offensive line ain't great. So, yeah, I think that they got to build some more around him. I still think he has potential to be a good NFL quarterback, but I think it's a little too early to kind of right the ship on him.
Yeah, well, Justin Fields thought we righted the ship last couple of weeks. Here we are. He did get hurt, which really is a bummer. It looks like he's at least going to miss next week. Did you know the Bears back up before he came in the game?
I did.
Of course you did. Of course. Where did he go to school at?
He went to Shepherd.
No, you did not know that. Come on.
Division 3. I can go on. The kid, he ended up with like 158 touchdowns in college. I think it's the most in college football.
Get his college football stats on ESPN.
Yeah. You want to hear another crazy thing about the kid? His dad is a multiple-time world champion arm wrestler.
Okay. Well, clearly he 10 for 14. He looked better than Justin Fields in this game.
He did.
That's not good. It's not looking good for the Bears right now. 1-5. Kirk Cousins still looks bad. This team, and this is what I'm always frustrated. Jordan Addison was shifted. I mean, he did have a touchdown, but they were like, he's going to have an explosion on fantasy football. And I was like, but he's not a number 1 yet. And now he's going to probably be going against a number 1 corner. And I think even though it's the Bears, it's just the NFL. So it's still just so hard. So I am still worried. I have some Jordan Addison shares. And without Justin Jefferson there, I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, no, that team without Justin Jefferson, they should probably just ride in the season because, you beat the Bears this week, but I don't see you winning a whole lot of games without Justin Jefferson. And I think that we see something if you lose, 3 or 4 more games while he's out. I don't know if we see Justin Jefferson the rest of the season.
Probably not. Mail it in.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp looks good, though, coming back.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp looks solid. But
now, I will say, go ahead.
It's kind of like, when are we going to see him on the sideline again, though?
So what I said at the beginning of the year was he was not going to put up the massive numbers because every time you look at it, he's always hurt. And so I still stand by what I said because he was already hurt. So he's putting up good numbers. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bengals, they get the win over the Seahawks. Do you feel like this is kind of turning a corner for Joe Burrow, or was this more of the same? I mean, 24-35, $185, a pick, 3 sacks.
Yeah, so I think you can give a little bit to Burrow against the Cardinals. But I think the only reason why they have won these last 2 games is because of the defense. This defense the last 2 games has caused 5 turnovers. You've sacked the quarterback 7 times, and you've had 21 quarterback hits and 15 pass breakups.
It is a lot.
The defense is the only reason why. The defense has ramped itself up the last couple of weeks because they've noticed that the offense is still lacking. Even though the big game they had against the Cardinals, look what he did this week now against the Seahawks, who have I think a pretty comparable defense to the Cardinals. I still haven't. I still think that there's a lot of questions out there about what's going to happen with the Bengals going forward to this season because Joe Burrow doesn't look the same. And we thought, maybe after last week, Jamar Chase was going to kind of jump out, back out there. He still kind of looked like he did the first, 5 weeks of the season. This offense is not that good right now.
I know, which you'd think it would be with all the skill positions. I mean, they're like the AFC version of what the 49ers have.
Yeah.
But they just have it hasn't been clicking this year. I think part of that is the offensive line. The difference in the offensive line from 49ers to Bengals is pretty significant right now, and that's a huge piece of it. So we had a new contract this year for Lamar Jackson. His team is 4-2 and currently leading the division in the AFC North, excuse me. Do you feel like he's living up to this contract? Do you feel like, I mean, is it worth it so far?
Honestly, I don't think any of these quarterbacks that signed the massive contracts this offseason have lived up to it this year.
I think that's a good take.
But I think I would say Lamar probably out of all of them has probably played better football. I think the numbers don't look as great for Lamar because he does have the highest drop percentage in the NFL right now. His teams are dropping the ball. His wide receivers are dropping the ball at like 7% or something like that of passes that hit their hands, which is
Would you rather have their receivers or the Chiefs receivers?
Oh, give me their receivers because
it's not great.
give me Zay Flowers. I'll take Zay Flowers over all of them. But my problem is that I don't feel like they played good football. And this is supposed to be the most weapons that he's ever had on offense. Odell Beckham's washed. We all know it. The $18 million with incentive deal is absolutely insane. Rashad Bateman, he is who he is. Not very good. Zay Flowers is the only reason why this offense has been as good. But if I'm the Ravens right now, I'm having a lot of reservations about giving him the contract. And it's not because of the way he's played, but it's the style of what he has played. He's carried the ball 60 times through 6 weeks. He's carried the ball 10 times a game for a guy that has had injury history the last 2 years.
It's a lot.
Are we looking a couple more weeks where we're going to see the same thing that's happened the last 2 years, where about week 8, week 9, we send him out for pretty much the remainder of the season because he gets hurt running the football so much? They need to, at this point right now, they need to find a way to get them a running back. They have to go out on the market, try to find someone to fill this hole, because if not, you won't have Lamar Jackson by the end of the season, more than likely.
Yeah, and here's the thing: you look at this defense, or him against the defense later in the year when he is going to have to play against teams like the good Bengals defense we've already talked about, like the Browns defense, which people are sleeping on. I mean, this is just the reality of where you're at. So they're going to have to figure out. I think that's right, though. Nobody has lived up to the hype of what these contracts have been so far, and part of that to me is analytics and sports and football and passing happy, and a 3-yard pass is not the same as a 3-yard run. I'm just saying that. And I think until we teeter back towards steer back to the other way. I don't know what the right phrasing is, but go back a little bit more towards the old fashioned every now and then power eye or whatever. I don't know. Just run the ball more. Give some relief to these quarterbacks.
I'll give you a good stat that supports what you're saying. And this is a Packers stat. The Packers are 35-2 when Aaron Jones has at least 15 carries. And in the games where he doesn't, they're about 500.
Yeah, give him the ball. Just run the ball more. I know you're down by 2 possessions. It's the second quarter. You got plenty of time. You're going to get some stops. Get a stop. Score, get a stop, you tie, right? So I think it's hard to NFL, but, figure it out. The Falcons do it all the time. They're 3-3. And then they have Desmond Ridder as their quarterback because they run the ball a lot.
Yep.
So if you're a fan, right, this is kind of the big last question I have for you. Which fan base should feel more concerned for their franchise's future right now? We got the Bears, the Giants, the Patriots, or the Broncos? I mean, the Broncos just invested so much. We thought Sean Payton was the hype. He was good. And here we are now. This team looks bad.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at the Bears and the Patriots, at least you're not tied down by massive contracts from quarterbacks. So I think you can probably set them off to the side, even though I think the whole situation with New England probably just needs to be blown up, and even Belichick probably needs to be gone at this point. But you're looking at a team with the Giants where you have really no offensive weapons outside of Saquon Barkley when he's on the field. And then you paid Daniel Jones millions of dollars to be one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. And now you're looking at the Broncos, where Sean Payton was supposed to be, the answer to everything and Russell Wilson really hasn't played awful this year. I think he's played better this year than he played last year, Their defense is so bad, which is insane, where it's just like complete polar opposite of last year, where their defense was so good, and now their offense is somewhat better. I shouldn't say it's good, but it's better. But you paid him, massive amount of money, guaranteed money, after you traded for him. You paid Sean Payton $100 million to be a head coach. I think you have a lot more problems there than you do with what you have going on in some of these other areas, because at least the Giants were smart and structured Daniel Jones's contract easy, where after a couple years, it was easy for them to get rid of him. I think the Broncos, everything I've heard is they basically said everyone's for trade. Make your offers. We'll see what happens, because that's a team. It's kind of confusing, honestly, to think about, because you have some great young defensive players, and the fact that your defense is ranked probably 32nd out of 32nd is crazy.
Well, Greg put that in the chat. Great players don't make great teams. Great teams make great teams. And I think that's the thing. If I'm any fan base right now, Denver's the one I don't want to be. And maybe that's because I'm a Chiefs fan. But I think about all these teams, which division is the toughest road to win and overcome? And I look at the quarterbacks on the other side of in the division itself. And I don't know how the Broncos can overcome where they're at right now. And you're like, man, we've blown this up 2 straight years. How are you supposed to get this right? And so I don't know. Would they be better off if they still had Drew Lock?
Honestly, at this point, I like I said, I don't think Russell Wilson has been the problem this year. I think he's probably been more of a solution than he was last year. But the fact is that you have Jerry Jeudy really just has underperformed his whole career. Marvin Mims looks probably the best, most explosive weapon on that offense, and he's not seen the field a whole lot offensive-wise after the big games that he's had, which kind of blows my mind. And then Sean Payton kind of just looks like he probably should have stayed retired because of some of the mental lapses he's had. I mean, you call a timeout on 4th down with, 30 seconds left at the end of the halftime when the Chiefs have no timeouts left, and you give Patrick Mahomes a chance to put themselves in position for more points, and they end up with the field goal. How do you let that happen? And you go, well, I thought it was 3rd down. How, as a coach, do you not know the down and distance for your team? So, yeah, I think right now they just kind of have to, everyone right now, it should be a fire sale, because they went out and spent a lot of money this offseason also. I mean, you spent big money on 2 offensive linemen that haven't really played really great. You spent a decent amount of money on a backup running back in Samaje Perine, who hasn't really seen the football field a whole lot, which I don't understand either, why you're going to pay him that much. And you paid a coach $100 million, and you traded picks for the guy, and he seems like, everyone want to talk about Nathaniel Hackett. He takes shots at Nathaniel Hackett about being one of the worst coaching hires ever last year, and you are doing worse this year than he did last year. I don't want to be a Broncos fan right now, the way this is looking future wise.
I 100% agree with you. I'm right there with you. All right, so quick trivia: what team has given up the fewest points per game in the NFL so far?
So far this year?
Yeah.
I'm going to say the Browns.
The Browns? Okay, so part of this has to come into play with bye weeks.
Oh, bye weeks.
So I didn't necessarily give you that. But bye weeks, they have given up the fewest points total. I think it's 77. Yeah, 77, but only 5 games.
Okay.
So let me see what that is per game. 7. It's 15.4 points per game. And the team that I believe is number 1, make sure I might be mixing those 2 teams up. Oh, no, I wasn't. 15.4. Kansas City Chiefs, 14.6.
I'd say that makes sense, yeah.
Nobody had that 6 weeks in the season.
And you played some pretty solid offenses, too.
I'm just saying, feeling pretty good about it. So, well, everybody, that is the podcast episode for this week. We are so grateful that you joined us. Be ready on wherever you're following us or downloading our podcast. Be sure you check us out on social media, because we're probably going to be dropping a different episode, different timing episode this next week with some travel coming up. So stick with us. We are so grateful that you joined us today. Make sure that you follow, download, and subscribe wherever it is you are listening to the W Sports Podcast. Till then, we'll see y'all next week.
See ya. See you.
All right, so bonus content time. Here we are. MLB. Here's what I was thinking. I had this thought the other day when the Astros clinched to go to the ALCS again. I was like, well, if the Astros win the World Series, clearly the baseball gods are cheaters. So
Did they lose?
Thank goodness they did lose. They're down 2-0 right now.
Man.
So when I ask you who you got in the series, here's the thing. They were 40-44, I think, at home so far this year, including the playoffs, and they are like 50-33 on the road. So they're better on the road. So how are you leaning in this series right now?
I mean, I don't want the Astros to win. That's for sure. I think it'll all depend on how Scherzer pitches, because their starting pitching has pitched really good, which I thought was going to be their problem. The pitching wise, I thought was going to be their issue. I mean, besides the one game against the Orioles, and I guess this game now, only gave it, what did they give it 4? Was it 5-4 his final score?
It was 5-4 in this game.
You
gave up 3.
Yeah, you gave up 8 runs against the Orioles. Other than that, you had only given up 12 runs. Before this game, you had only given up 12 runs.
Yeah.
In 6 games. And 8 of them was in one game. That tells you how good the pitching has been, which I thought was going to be the weak point, and it hasn't been. So I think the Rangers have the edge. They do have an edge at 2-0, but I think that I don't know if the Astros have the offense.
Well, I hate the Astros so much. Be done with the Astros.
Yeah, I mean, they jumped on them quick. It kind of reminds me of the Dodgers Diamondback series, honestly, where they were able to jump on you so fast. And the Astros, it's not like they haven't had opportunities. They've had twice in back-to-back games against the starting pitchers, bases loaded, no outs, and they have scored exactly 0 runs on those 2 occasions.
You cannot waste opportunities like that in baseball. I love Greg in the chat. The Expos are going to take it. You know what? Maybe. There's a dark horse for sure. Phillies already up 3-0. Hope that doesn't spoil it for you in the third. This is one that Arizona had to win the starting pitching, and Zach Gallen has unfortunately not done it. He's given up 3 solo home runs already. Can you name those 3 players?
Well, I'm guessing. What inning is it?
It's the third.
Nobody. So I'm guessing it was Harper, Schwarber, and Castellanos.
Dude, you nailed all 3. The number 1 hitter, the number 3 hitter, and the number 7. The fact that you got those, that's pretty good. That was impressive.
Gosh. Man, I don't know if anyone's beaten. I mean, that World Series could be explosive if it's them and the Rangers. I'm hoping it's the Diamondbacks and the Rangers, because then we can say you go back and watch at the beginning of the year, these were our 2 dark horse teams, the Diamondbacks and the Rangers.
They were.
At this point, though, I think you got to give us some credit that we have both of our dark horse teams are in the LCS.
Please look at my dark horse team pick. Please. That's all you got to look. I do think the Phillies, like you said this for the last month and a half, this team is on fire. They're clicking. They are a playoff built team, and it's theirs to lose right now against the Diamondbacks. And I like the Diamondback story. I'd love to see them win. In a world where they get a World Series win after that dumpster fire of a trade they had for Goldschmidt or to get rid of him, they'd be like, worth it. Yeah. So we got Gallen.
Yeah, I think it would be great, to see the Rangers in them. But honestly, no one wants to play the Phillies at this point. Why would you? I mean, the pitching is on. The hitting is just absolutely insane right now. And I don't want to have to go to Philadelphia and play a baseball game right now.
No, that crowd is a great fan base for baseball right now.
I saw something this week, and they're like, everyone's trying to figure out why there's such kind of this lull with the Eagles and the fan base and stuff like that. And they're like, because everyone's watching baseball right now.
Dude, the East Coast loves their baseball. Do not mess around with East Coast in baseball. Yeah,
if you're the Philly, you're a Phillies fan, I'm watching them right now. And then instead of what's kind of going on with the Eagles, because this is a team that probably, I would say, if you're betting odds, they have the best odds right now to win. Even with the way the Rangers have played, this team's just played a little bit better, especially.
The starting pitching is so good.
Yeah.
Good. Nola versus Kelly tomorrow, and Kelly was really good in his start so far. 6 innings, 5 Ks, only 2 walks. Aaron Nola, 2 starts, 12 innings, 12 Ks, a WHIP under 1, a ERA at 1.42. He's won both starts. I mean, man,
Yeah.
he's on. I mean, he's locked in.
Yeah.
And this does feel like the team to beat.
Yeah. Because last year you thought they had a realistic chance, but they were playing a team in the Astros that had been there. They've won some World Series. You had the starting pitching depth and what they had, but now we're looking at a team that has been there. Yeah, they haven't won the World Series, but they were there last year, and they just look like a team that's possessed. And when you see a team this hot when it comes to playoff time, it's almost impossible to beat them.
Yeah. We're gonna see what happens. I am hopeful. I'm hopeful that Arizona pulls it out because I don't like the Phillies. I don't like the Rangers that much. I hate the Astros.
Yeah.
Thank goodness that no offense to your daughters, the Dodgers, but thank goodness the Braves aren't in. I don't like the Braves.
Yeah, no, I don't really like any of the teams, and I'm rooting for the Diamondbacks just because I want to see it. I mean, why not? This young upstart team that no one really gave much of a chance to, except for maybe one guy this year, I think would be cool to see. But I just don't know if they have enough what it takes to even compete with the Rangers. Even if they made it to the World Series to compete with the Rangers or the Astros, just I don't know.
Yeah,
they're a year ahead of what they should have been, more than likely.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, any other final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, we got to fire Dave Roberts if we're Dodgers. If it hasn't happened so far, I don't understand why. And so there's a few things that I want to point out. Granted, partway through that game, I was like, okay, Dave Roberts, I don't think can be the blame for the last two playoffs because of the way the offense hit last year and the way the offense was hitting this year. But then again, the more I started to dive into it, it came more abundant to me that this guy, and he even admitted it after the game, is like, well, I'm going to have to figure out a way to motivate these guys to play, or, do the week off, have to figure something out, different strategy. I'm like, but you should have done that after the first year. When you notice that there was something different because of the way the new playoff set up, and you didn't change anything, the next year, I mean, you have your two best players, Mookie and Freeman, go 1 for 27 or 1 for 21 in that series. Mookie Betts is 3 for his last 39 in the playoffs. The pitching, the starting rotation, it was absolutely atrocious. The bullpen was absolutely the best part of this team. I mean, they got 65 of the 78 outs in this. I mean, your pitching staff gave him a no shot. But I think it's come to the point where you do the same thing, the same outcome.
Got to change something.
Keeps happening. Something's got to change. And as much as Dave Roberts, I mean, he has the highest winning percentage ever as a manager in baseball right now.
He's been winning.
But how much do you take that into consideration when you've only got one World Series? Yeah, you got cheated out of another one, but you haven't played. I mean, like we text about this. The last 5 playoff series, you really haven't been competitive in 3 of them. I think that when it comes down to it, he just isn't the guy to get it done when it needs to be done. And as a Dodgers fan, I think there has to be some change, because you can't just keep going into the same thing every single year and expecting a different outcome.
Yeah. Well, you could be like a Cardinals fan page that I saw this week that they had posted a picture and said, this day so many years ago, Mike Schill got fired. Remember this guy won manager of 17 straight wins, and I commented, you guys are dumb. He had to win 17 games in a row to finish at 18 games over 500 that year. He was a 500 manager that year. And I'm not saying I'm a fan of Ollie, but it wasn't Mike either. So he didn't have as much talent probably as Ollie has. He probably had better pitching, but not as good offense. But yeah, I feel you on that one. It's a tough part whenever that happens in, the baseball season. It's just such a grind. So,
and do I expect the Dodgers to fire him? No.
I don't either. No. So
won't happen, but
we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
It's going to be a quick off season because the World Series is going to go probably till November. And then you're going to have a month and a half off. You're going to have some free agency. And then you're going to have a month and a half until spring training.
Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah. So,
Right.
man, thanks everyone for jumping in the chat. We appreciate you guys coming hanging out with us. This was a good week. Stick around again because we will be back on the show later this week for next week. So that's it. That's all I got, man.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week then.
See ya.
See ya.